Good evening, friends. I'm David Thompson, and today I'm submitting this video as a response to the assignment in week 4 of Introduction to Counseling. Introduction to Counseling is a required course in the Master of Counseling degree at LeTourneau University in Longview, Texas. I'll be speaking today about the life and work of John B. Watson. He's often called the father of behaviorism. While much of his seminal work has not survived the test of time, his philosophical bent has influenced many areas of psychology. In particular, the field of experimental psychology is indebted to his legacy. Now, John Broadus Watson was an American psychologist born January the 9th of 1878. He passed away 80 years later on September the 25th of 1958. He was raised in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. His mother later moved him to Greenville to give him some better opportunities for education. That didn't work out very well because it really kind of messed his mind up as he went through the culture shock of moving from a rural to an urban area. Watson's education was obtained at Furman University and the University of Chicago. He became a professor at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore until he was asked to leave in 1920 in the wake of scandals regarding his research. He would also later be dismissed from the new School for Social Research in New York, again for sexual misconduct, and most of his later life was spent in New York working in advertising. Even there in advertising, his work was primarily in the manipulation of the behavior of the consumer. So his major claim to fame is twofold. His work was extensive, and most of it's been absorbed into mainstream society. For example, one Johns Hopkins University staffer named Halsey noted that the behaviorist techniques have become just part of our vernacular. For example, everyone uses the word time out when we talk about child discipline. Watson's most enduring legacy is the infamous little Albert experiments that were done at Johns Hopkins with the help of graduate assistant Rosalie Rayner. In this set of experiments that were done with a 9-month-old child, classic conditioning was done so that the child, who was not afraid of animals to start with, was conditioned to fear them. This experiment has come to be viewed as unethical. There was never anything done to decondition little Albert from the fear, and we don't know what the long-lasting effects of the experiments were on the child because the child died several years later. Now, Watson wrote extensively, but 2 of his works are significant, so they have to be mentioned. First of all, his article on psychology as the behaviorist views it. That was written in 1921. This article laid the foundation for much of the behaviorist work of the next several decades. For example, Skinner's work in the 1950s and 60s. It was considered the behaviorist manifesto. He also wrote about the psychological care of infant and child in 1928. Later in life, he said that he regretted writing about child development because he wasn't an expert and didn't know enough about it. His partner and wife, Rayner, wrote a book on her own titled I Am a Mother of Behaviorist Sons. Joanne Kavanaugh Simpson quoted several of the passages from her book, and at one point she talks and says, I secretly wish that on the score of the children's affections, that they will be a little weak when they grow up, that they will have a tear in their eyes for poetry and for drama of life, and a throb for romance. She said, I like being merry and gay and having the giggles, and the behaviorists think giggling is a sign of maladjustment. And perhaps Watson's own words about his own theory in the 1921 article describe his theories best. Psychology, as the behaviorist views it, is a purely objective experimental branch of natural science. Its theoretical goal is the prediction and the control of behavior. He didn't believe in introspection. He didn't believe that the data itself needed to be interpreted in terms of consciousness. His bottom line was that he didn't believe in the concept of soul, and really didn't acknowledge that people had minds. He said the behavior of man, with all of its refinement and complexity, forms only a part of the behaviorist total scheme of investigation He said that the behaviorist tries to get to a unitary scheme of animal response, and in doing so he recognizes no dividing line between man and brute. Now, many aspects of Watson's theories have been considered narrow and philosophical in nature. Probably his greatest contribution was in contributing to the popularization of psychology in the minds of the American people. His work was foundational to later works. For example, in the Journal of Sex Research in 1981, H.W. McGowan said that masters and others who had contributed significantly to research in human sexual response did so in the wake of Watson's work. Shortly before his death, the APA honored Watson, who had been their youngest president at the age of 36, with these words. They said, "His work has been one of vital determinants of the form and substance of modern psychology. He initiated a revolution in psychological thought, and his writings have been the point of departure for continuing lines of fruitful research." I compiled this video tonight using several sources, including H.W. McGowan's John B. Watson and the Study of Human Sexual Response, J.C. Simpson's It's All in Upbringing, out of John Hopkins Magazine, published in April of 2000, and John Watson and Rayner's Conditioned Emotional Reactions, The Case of Little Albert, published in 1920. John Watson's 1921 article, Psychology as the Behaviorist Views It, and Carrie Buckley's biography regarding Watson, Mechanical Man, John Broadus Watson and the Beginnings of Behaviorism, from the Guilford Press in New York, New York in 1989. I hope that this was informational and fulfilled the assignment. If you enjoyed the class to this point, thank you for your comments and your discussion. I always appreciate that. And you have a great night tonight.